What is going on? I want to welcome you from Half Court for today, Wednesday, October 12th. I am your host, Sean Murphy, alongside two of my favorite people. My guy, Jeff. I afraid he directly to my right. Jeff, you even got the hair out today, dude. Oh, look at that,
Dude,
man.
had to. Special
Man.
occasion. Now we got Troy back-to-back weeks. I'm excited. It's gonna be a
Yeah,
good one.
dude. Yeah, dude. Exactly. Because the man, of course, back still from his wedding, not taken away from us, back on the pod regularly, our guy, Troy Sergey with the Marquette Heat. Troy, how's things going, my friend?
Things are going good. Just got tickets actually yesterday for Friday. Get to see some Tyrese Halliburton, some Benedict Mathurin, some Jabari Smith Jr., and some Jalen Green on Friday preseason.
That's right. Yeah, you get to go see Pacers Rockets.
I'm going to Pacers and Rockets on Friday, so that'll be a good time
game.
seeing those guys in person. Yeah, and I just think about the two. I guess okay. I was going to say two of the past 2 years, top 3 picks, with Jabari Smith going 3 last year.
Yeah,
I'm trying to do the math, and then Jalen Green going
two
second.
top 3 picks in the last 2 years.
You got it. I was trying to do the math there, but yes. I get to see them along with a good rookie this year with Benedict Mathurin, and of course the year earlier, 2020, with Tyrese Halliburton. So some young core get to see, and it'll be fun. What's up?
Yeah, for sure. No, it's gonna be great, and you're also gonna see two teams that have genuine cases at Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah, absolutely. I get to see.
That's a thing. Oh my God, we were talking about. Oh man, what should we talk about on the pod? We haven't talked about the Victor Wembanyama Scoot Henderson game yet, guys.
Yeah, he's
all right. Yeah, so obviously, this is all right. Hold on. This is From Half Court Region. Every week we talk all things NBA basketball. If you like that here, be sure you like this video, subscribe to the podcast, share with a friend, and even leave a rating on whatever podcast service that your heart so fawns over. Also, be sure that you're joining in the comment section below and joining the community, because this is the place you're gonna want to be. Also, I'm thinking about doing a fantasy basketball league. If you have any interest in doing that, let us know in the comment section down below, because we probably should get that set up if that's a thing we're going to do. But anyway, let's get into it. Guys, this last week, on the night of the Pistons' first preseason game, there was another game that was going on, not in the NBA world, but specifically in the NBA G League world, specifically between the Metropolitan 90 Seconds and the G League Ignite, specifically showcasing the top 2 prospects in this upcoming draft, Victor Wembanyama out of France and Scoot Henderson on the G League Ignite. And these 2 games, obviously game 1 was got far more hype. That was the one that was in prime time on national television that everyone could tune into. Scoot Henderson finished with 28 points, Victor Wembanyama with 37. And then, guys, 2 days later, Victor Wembanyama came out and scored 36 again. And there are moments where you look at a guy and it's like you remember the first time you watched a player, right? For me, I think I have to think back this far and this deep, but for me, I have to think back to the first time I was watching Kevin Durant on ESPN when I was a kid and being wowed by this guy's the future, right? And even then, Kevin Durant wasn't being touted. He was a number 2 overall pick, but Greg Oden was the real product in that draft, right? But guys, we're talking Victor Wembanyama. We're talking we haven't seen a prospect like this since freaking the 80s with some of the big men like Hakeem and Rob, some of Al Sender. You know what I mean? This is how far back you have to go to when you talk about generational type prospect we have in our hands here. So, Troy, since you're back, I just want to get, what was your first reaction when you just saw Victor Wembanyama on a court, but then what was your first reaction when you saw just what he started to do?
Yeah, to answer your first question, the first thing I thought was that the game's changing. In so many ways, we've talked about how the game's evolving on this podcast before many times. But the truth is, you said we haven't seen a guy like this in 35 plus years. And not only that, we've never seen a guy like this either, because even the guys you mentioned, Hakeem Olajuwon, Lou Alcindor, now Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, those guys didn't have the range and the guard-like abilities as Victor Wembanyama has. So I think for me, we can see a guy like Giannis. Okay, he's a big man. He's an athletic freak. He's got a jump shot now. He's the league. We've said that many times in this podcast before. Giannis is the league, and he's even different than a Giannis, right? I mean, you can't really compare the two. They're very unique in their own different ways.
He has the athleticism and ferocity of Giannis with the touch and elegance of Kevin Durant.
Kevin Durant was going to be the guy I said. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and I think to answer your second question, I did see a glimpse of Durant when I saw that. I saw that second 36-point game that he put up that you were just mentioning. And yeah, I mean, he had the touch of a guard. It was just that body too, that frame he has. It's even a more unique frame than Chet, right? We talk about Chet being a skinny guy with some guard abilities this past year, all summer long with him, but he's even way different than a Chet too. I think I don't think you can even compare the two fully.
Well, like Chet, Chet's one of those bigs where you watch him and it's how he doesn't move quite right.
Correct.
But he can get to where he needs to go.
But Victor
Wembanyama looks like he's like a normal human being walking the streets,
right. In his body with his guard-like ability and his touch around the rim too. I mean, he plays like his size as well. So yeah, for me, he's something that I've never seen before. I don't think the league has ever seen anything like him before either. He's his own category already.
It's one of those times. It's truly one of those times where you remember where you were when you watched that game.
Yeah. Yeah, and Troy, the point he brought up was exactly what I was going to say too. Is look how the game has evolved. That's probably the number one thing I take away from Victor is it's hard to compare him to legitimately anybody. Watching him, and you could talk about, you saw the picture of him next to Rudy Gobert. By the way, he's 4 inches taller than him, made him look small, which is ridiculous. But he has this skill set. Even a guy like Giannis, it took years for Giannis to even develop the things he has now. Victor has everything. This is why you can make the argument that guys need to be drafted. It doesn't even matter. I mean, draft the guy at 18. He deserves to be here. He's good enough. You saw the guard-like skills he has at 7'4", 7'5", being great for himself. And I think more importantly, you see with a lot of guys like him, or at least centers, your question, are they soft? Victor's a dog, man.
Yep.
He really is. He has that mentality as well. He knows I'm the alpha. You saw the comment he had about Scoot, where they're like, hey, what do you think about Scoot? And he's like, hey, he'd go number one if it wasn't for me coming out. The guy
he literally said, Scoot Henderson is a great player. If I was never born, he would deserve to be the number one pick. That's bars.
No, that's a dog, man. And I am terrified we'll see what happens in the draft, but to be playing against this man in the league, this is something we have never seen. And for him, his upside, the only thing that would hold this man back would be being available. If he's available, there's no question Victor is going to be special in the NBA because it's hard. You can't compare him to anybody. He's so good at such a young age.
The question's just going to be his availability. The question's never going to be his ability because this is a guy that if he is durable and if he has a career, the ceiling is nothing other than greatest of all time. I'm dead serious. And that feels crazy to say, but guys, who have we seen that is more complete at this age than Victor Wembanyama? I mean, in my lifetime, nobody.
I think too, another date we got to put on our calendars is in May with the NBA draft ladder. I can think of 2 other occasions that I remember being so pumped to see where a player would land. And it was 2010 with John Wall. Where would John Wall go? Went to the Washington Wizards. 2018, where would Zion go? The Pelicans. And I guess you could say 2020 with Cade, or 2021 with Cade. But this is going to be another year where our eyes are going to be glued on that draft lottery.
And one real quick, at his size too, like it's hard for me to process. Like I'm watching him. He's creating for himself. Like if nobody knows, if you told somebody who didn't know who Victor Wembanyama, I can't say his last name.
Wembanyama.
I'll just say Victor. If you don't know who Victor is, turn on his tape. Watch this man in game 1, by the way. I know the second game, it was less efficient, still had 30 plus points, mostly free throws. But go back and watch the first game. 7 threes, 7 for 11 from 3, 5 blocks. Like at 7'4", 7'5", maybe. Like with ball handling ability, he can create for himself. He was pulling up damn near 2-3 feet behind the arc. I mean, you're right, Troy. This is a player that I'm going to be keyed in on to not only watch where he goes, but to watch how his career pans out. I mean, he's must-see TV. He really is, because we've never seen anything like him at his size.
Well, and then you touch in the fact that like this guy played so well that it's completely overshadowing the fact that on the other side of the court, this number 2 prospect, Scoot Henderson, is possibly one of the best guard prospects we've seen since Derrick Rose. And that's saying something. I mean, the mentality, the his athleticism, his speed, his aggression, him going at Victor Wembanyama on multiple cases and getting the best of him in a lot of cases. I'm sure that might have been the first time in Victor Wembanyama's life that he's gotten driven on like that. So, I like just he is insanely impressive too. But Troy, to your point, like not only like will fans have that date, on the NBA calendar circled for when that lottery is, but NBA executives all across the league have to be salivating, waiting for that date. And it's kind of crazy because we're in a situation where like you would think that with that type of prospect on the way, like I think back to, like some of the seasons we've had a couple of years ago where so many teams are tanking, right? You could argue there's more teams right now than ever trying to win games.
Correct. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And
so we've talked about this so many times on this podcast too. Every team in this league, all 30 teams, has a player or 2 players that are worth watching if they're on TV, right? There's no team in this league right now, if they're playing, we're like, don't need to watch them, because there's all young talent on every team that we want to watch develop, that we've been watching with the draft and everything else. So yes, whoever lands Victor already has pieces together to succeed at this moment.
But Troy, I want to go down this route too, though. We're like at the beginning of the season, we have so many teams right now that are trying to win games, right? Could we possibly see an all-time course correction where like how many franchise could we like even at like the trade deadline, how many teams could be selling? What players could be available that like wouldn't normally be because teams are wanting to like, because this isn't even just the sweepstakes of getting Victor Wembanyama. This is supposed to be one of the deepest draft classes of all time. Like supposedly what we have coming up, like we have our friend, Steve, who does, draft breakdowns. He said he's watched film on 58 prospects already that he's done deep dives.
It's almost the whole draft.
He said there's multiple guys that would be great. There's 60 in a draft. He's already done 58. The guy's a freaking menace. But
he's got it covered.
But in all seriousness, it's like just the amount of names that it's like, man, what these guys can do. And I think even too, like one last thing, like I think Victor Wembanyama is like the ultimate case study of what Steph Curry has meant to the game of basketball. It's like you got to think like when Steph Curry was at the apex beginning to do what he was doing was when Victor Wembanyama was like what, 8-9 years old.
Yeah.
So what do you think kids like Victor started to do when they started to see what Steph Curry did? They started to shoot threes. And I think Victor Wembanyama is like, if we're talking about how the game has changed, like you said, it is changing. Guys, he is the case study. It's changed. It's here. Like once Victor touches the NBA court, positions are dead. They're just dead.
And I think too, to that point, Sean, we think of in our lifetime, a giant, a giant that had influence on the game. Really, the only giant I can think of is Yao Ming at 7'5", 7'6", and to compare the two, you would never compare Yao Ming to Victor with his skill level, right? Because Yao Ming was a Hall of Famer, just at his size and his ability, obviously, just to put the ball in the hole around the rim. But Victor can do so much more. So what I'm saying with his size, we already know what guys his size can do with a little bit of skill. Put a lot of skill on a guy like that. Like you said, Sean.
Put all time. Like, this is a guy with his skill set that would still be a number 1 pick candidate at 6'9".
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, with the things he's doing, he could be 6'9" and still be the top player in this draft. He's 7'5" with shoes on.
Yeah, add another half a foot, and you got Victor. So for me, and you make a great point too, Sean, how the impact that Steph had on the game. And listen, Steph, we could blame Steph, you can blame whoever you want. The center position, look at how, and you brought up Yao Ming. It's a great point because look at how it's changed. Like, the traditional center is dead. Look at the best centers right now in the NBA. Even DeAndre Ayton, who's like let's say a top 6 center. His ability or his lack of to be able to space and shoot threes, it's kind of limited him. Like, even Joel Embiid, these guys now, like Andre Drummond the other night was 3 for 3 from 3. Like, that's a part of your game that you need. And for Victor, who's so young, to have that at his age,
Steven Adams is shooting threes.
Yeah,
Steven Adams.
That's a shocker.
The game, man. It's just Steph Curry. He really did. He changed the game completely.
Yeah, because in his draft too, who went number 2 in Steph's draft? Hashim Thabit, who only played like 3 years in the league. Sean and I watched him play in Grand Rapids against the Drive a couple years ago, and he couldn't even contribute on a G League
the
team,
big
right?
thing with tall guys was like teams are just going for the tall guys because it was like a lot of times it was like, well, imagine if they have skill, because it's like essentially it's like Victor Wembanyama is like what every GM viewed like tall prospects to be back in the day, except this guy is for real. Again, it is the only question is going to be his availability, because with that type of body, with that type of skill set, we don't know if that can hold up in an 82 game setting and then deep down the playoffs and then over the course. Like, we don't know how long this guy's career can be, but like if healthy, if sustainable, we're in for quite a ride. Yeah. And I know a lot of like Pistons fans or like a lot of fans around the league are like, we got to tank for Victor, we got to go for Victor. Like, listen, man, like, I think this league is like, each season and each game is too valuable. Like, and like you said, Troy, so many teams, like not even just the Pistons, like just so many teams have so much talent where it's like, we've seen, especially like even this last year in the lottery, like tanking doesn't guarantee you anything. So I think, so I think it's still about like, how do you keep competing? How do you keep, pushing forward? And, like at the end of the day, I do think by the trade deadline, I think by the end of the season, I think we could see a level of tanking in this league that we've never seen before. I really do. I think like last year we saw a lot of G League guys, like a lot of like G League, like reserve players or like just G League players in general, just make their way up to the league during the season. But like, we could just be seeing that at a different scale. Like, especially like, I look at teams like if the Chicago Bulls, things aren't looking good, they might need to like be desperate to be sure they can secure their pick. Like I think of even
Spurs,
like,
how about the Spurs?
Oh yeah. Well, no, the Spurs, they're just set up from day one. That's their whole mission.
Try to be good.
No, like, like we were just talking about like freaking Danny Ainge. He like, it makes sense why I did the Bojan trade now. I mean, like, it's like, heck, you can have Bojan. Like, we need to be as bad as possible. We need to go for Victor. Like, it is crazy. Like Woj even said that having Victor Wembanyama on your franchise could add as much as $500 million of worth to the franchise.
Global.
Global.
$500 million.
It's like the Luka Doncic argument. Like, when you get these guys that are international superstars and they come over to the NBA and find a lot of success, not only does it generate, interest from a local standpoint, a global standpoint. And my God, owners are looking at that with the little money, the money signs over their eyeballs. I mean, that you're going to strike gold, not just from what he can do on the court, but off the court. Look at the impact he has now with social media. I mean, Victor, everybody knows, at least if you follow the NBA and you follow basketball, you know who Victor is.
Yeah.
So imagine him on an NBA squad playing in the NBA on a night-to-night basis. I mean, the impact would be unimaginable. It really would.
Sean, another level that I thought of too just right now is that you think of how deep the league is. Obviously, we've talked about that a million times, and the All-Stars. We think of how even competitive it is to make an All-Star team this year. Could we see teams who maybe are on that play-in branch but do have superstars? I'm not going to name any names here, but you can maybe do your assumption of what teams I'm talking about. Could you trade that star player for whatever team has the first pick for a Victor?
No. Troy, I think honestly, I think this number one pick is, I think you could honestly offer 9 first-round picks, 10 first-round picks, and I think teams would still laugh at you. I don't think, I think you could offer the kitchen sink. You could offer you could offer your family. Like, you know what I mean? And they're gonna like go, no, because
it's what they're potentially missing out on. Like, imagine you take that deal, it has nothing to do with the value, but you're going to be the franchise that traded out of the number one pick, and Victor goes on to have this, let's just say, hypothetically, Hall of Fame career. Like, you don't want to risk that.
To me,
especially for the Jazz.
To me, it's the most untradeable pick of all time.
Okay.
It was
just
that.
Right.
I don't know. The LeBron, the number one LeBron pick might have been
probably since LeBron. Yeah, you could argue. Yeah. Or if you want to throw, maybe Cade is not as close, but Cade's in that conversation. You wouldn't trade that one, but LeBron is definitely for sure the last one.
Yeah.
Or the Cleveland Cavaliers.
You could have made an argument that the Pistons traded to like the third pick. They would have been just fine. However, like in this one, it's like if you trade out like the ticket of Victor Wembanyama, I mean, that's the golden ticket of a lifetime winning that lottery. So, seemingly at least, obviously it could burn, but like, who's going to burn you on that in hindsight? Like, this is literally like one of the greatest draft prospects we've ever seen. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see all the highlights that come out of France the rest of this year, because he is not going to stop playing. The Metropolitan 90 seconds, literally they paused their season so that they could come to the United States and showcase Victor. So that tells you how highly they think of him. So yeah, man, it's gonna be an exciting year, an exciting season, but also so many storylines, in my opinion, were just formulated from that. And I just can't wait to see, like, guys, we're gonna see LeBron versus Wembanyama. We're gonna see, I can't wait until we see these Titans face off for the first time.
I'm here for Giannis, and I'm here for Joel Embiid against Victor. It's gonna be some great games, man.
Just think of like even like the World Cup and like the FIBA battles we're gonna have, like the gold, like just like Olympic basketball is gonna be competitive as hell.
Yeah,
going forward. But yeah, that's a whole other conversation for a whole other time. But guys, yeah, those guys are flat out special. We had to talk about that for sure. But another group that's looking pretty special and looks like they have some pretty good things building, at least for the long term, the Detroit Pistons. And specifically we're through a couple preseason games now, and this comes out, there'll have been the third preseason game. However, a little bit of a inside baseball. We record these Monday nights. So by the time this comes out, we won't have seen that game quite yet. However, I did kind of want to like take a little bit of a pulse check. You know what I mean? Just kind of see, now that we've had a couple, like an opportunity to watch a couple games, I just kind of want to get like what, like putting general public opinion aside, like, what are your guys' opinions? What have been your takeaways? And, like, what is there anything that you maybe are watching more closely now that you've seen this team play a couple games? Like, Troy, I want to come to you first. Like, what have been, some of your impressions of watching the team? Have your thoughts changed? Has your expectations changed at all? Where are you at? How are you feeling about the team currently?
Yeah, nothing's really changed, I think. Obviously, I think last time you kind of asked me the same question with what two takeaways did I get from the first game, and what I answered was that Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren are guys that you want on your basketball team, and that still stands. We saw that in both games. Ivey's athleticism, Ivey's ability to get to the hole to facilitate. I think for me too, Sadiq Bey, we can definitely tell an improvement with him. I think not that I was expecting, that I thought last year he had a bad year, but I just feel like he's his normal self. He's improved that jump shot even more, I think. So I think his play has been impressive to me too. I thought that Pelicans game, just his confidence with shooting the ball is great. And obviously Cade Cunningham's Cade Cunningham. There's nothing really to say on that point. So I think our expectations in that, I guess, 30 to 34 games winning window would still be kind of where I'm at with things. Every game being competitive, though, I think that's going to be something that we haven't seen in quite a bit of years here in Detroit. And I think we're going to see that here with this team. I think every game is going to be competitive. We may lose by 10 some games, may lose by 15, but at least we're going to be trying our best out there. And I think there's going to be games where maybe we have a 15-point lead in the third quarter and we blow it.
Yeah.
Those games might happen too. But I think every game you're going to see the best version of the Detroit Pistons on the floor.
I think this is the first time in a long time where both times, the Pistons have been out on the court, like even against a team that has Zion Williamson, who, we just talked about generational first overall pick talents. Zion was one of those guys, right? Even with a team against Zion, Brandon Ingram, like all these guys that they have, though they didn't have everyone healthy there playing, the Pistons still look, there's not a significant talent deficit by any means. Like just on paper and also just looking at the team that they're putting out on the court. Not only are they apparently just more talented at the beginning of this season than they were last year, but guys, this roster is just way deeper.
Yeah.
I mean, like when you look at like who even just played this past preseason game alone, there were already 4 key rotation players that were out in this game, right? Jalen Duren was out, Nerlens Noel was out, Alec Burks was out, Hamidou Diallo was out. Like 4 guys that we all believe are going to play at least some form of role on the team this year, correct?
Mm-hmm.
There were 9 guys in this game that played significant minutes who all are going to be significant parts of the rotation. Mm-hmm. Like there were 10 guys that played. Braxton Key, as good as he's looked at time, he's not going to have regular minutes in the regular season. Correct. He's just not, right? But the other guys will. And so the fact that like that's not even counting Alec Burks, mm-hmm. who's definitely going to have a spot in this rotation. Mm-hmm. Nerlens Noel, who day one will definitely get some minutes at the big. Hamidou Diallo, who at points was a fixture in our rotation this last year. I mean, guys, like it's going to be hard to find minutes for some of these guys. Like we just haven't had that issue in years.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, and the hardest thing to talk about too is looking at how young this team is. It's hard to put like a cap on them. Like I know people talk about, there's a lot of talent. We have a lot of talent with the Pistons, but you really don't know. You don't know how good or how better Cade's going to look in his second year. Same with Sadiq. I mean, in his third year, Stewart. I mean, you got a lot of guys you can go down the list. So for me, it's like, there's a lot of promising young talent, but there's going to be guys, and I think Troy put it perfectly, and we've talked about this as well, is you expect them to be competitive, but you really don't really know what to expect individually. And I think that's the most exciting part of this season for me, is seeing how guys progress, seeing how guys get better, because the NBA, unlike the NFL, things take time. Like Rome isn't built in a day. We said this in the video last week. And I think that's the truest thing about this team currently, is because I don't think they're on, and people might have those expectations of a plan this year. They're not on that Memphis Grizzlies, in my opinion. They're not on that trajectory right now. I think they're trending that way. Maybe next year they'll make the play in, and then so on and so forth. But right now it's just about playing competitive basketball as long as guys are getting better. And you saw the turnovers the 2 preseason games. I think that's going to be a reoccurring issue because it is a young team. They got to learn how to play together. But the big thing is for me is them just getting better individually, learning how to play together, learning how to win. Like Troy said, you're going to have games where you blow a 15-point lead. You might have games where you keep a 15-point lead. So just building on that is all I ask for. I think that's a very level-headed take to have this year.
Well, I think the other thing too, to your point, Jeff, like you bring up how like you don't put a cap on like what they can do. It's like, in all likelihood, the Pistons aren't going to make the play-in this year. But like You couldn't tell the guys inside that locker room that.
No,
You
you
couldn't
can't.
tell you couldn't tell the guys on that coaching bench that, right? Like, I think that, like, the idea is, like, I don't think they're gonna put a cap on where they can go this season either. And I think the truth is like, I think their mentality should be that. I think the mentality should be to aspire for it. And even if you're not necessarily like, even if we're not necessarily getting there, even at the end of the day, like we're like, we find ourselves like a few games out of that playing game or that playing tournament, that doesn't mean that that's like a loss, right? Because again, it's about playing important basketball. It's about getting those significant minutes under their belt, because and getting NBA minutes is one thing, but getting NBA minutes when they have genuine consequence, when the stakes are raised, when your season is on the line, is just experience that they haven't had yet, right? So
Right.
yeah, for them to have that this year will be huge. I know one, another guy that, I think, quite frankly, I think we're watching Killian Hayes under far too much of a microscope. I know there's like footage of like shootouts that have of like jump shots like during practice, like shooting drills and stuff. Everyone's like looking at like Killian's form and like where he's at like now versus where it's like people are looking at Killian under a very, 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 very sharp microscope this year. But I think overall, like, I think through the first two games, I think it's kind of been like the tale of Killian, right? I think game one was kind of the aggressive Killian Hayes that we wanted to see, the one that, people have been clamoring for. And I think game two was kind of like a little bit more, I guess, the Killian Hayes that you come to expect from time to time, right? Like, he's still been more aggressive overall. But I think if there's like one thing that like so far that's like been interesting to gauge is preseason, like, like fans, like one game they were like, "Oh, Killian's back, he's awesome," and then the next they're like, "Nope, we're screwed. Killian sucks."
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know about that, but
and I think that has a lot to do with, we talked with Rod about this, me and Brandon, just about like how fans, and I get it, that everyone's a victim to this, but being so excited, because a lot of people do, they spend time in the offseason, watching Pistons, watching, following people who cover the team, reading about the rumors, watching footage. And then that first preseason game hits and they just, it's all that hopium, the hopium ingests into their lungs. And then now all of a sudden he's the worst player on planet Earth. So for me, and we've been talking about this too. We had the stream the night after the first preseason game, and everyone was in the comments, fire Dwayne, trade Cade, I'm just joking about the trade Cade, but Cade's trash, Sadiq's trash. I'm like, guys, I get it. Everyone's so excited to watch basketball, but people have to understand that these preseason games, not only is the mentality different, it's almost like an extended scrimmage in a way. And I hate,
exactly.
It's very disrespectful to call it that, but that's the reality of it. Like, that's how players treat it.
Even Dwayne Casey before game one, he called it an extended practice.
There you go. I mean, that's the reality. So for fans that are freaking out, I get it, true. I get why Killian would be under a microscope, because that is a big year for him. But to analyze two preseason games, come on, guys.
Yeah. Well, and can we be honest? Like, there were just points that Cade looked bored. Like, there's like that is the thing, is like, I'm like, man, I'm excited to see like what he can do this second year. And like, I know a lot of people have been looking at the preseason to be like, one of those times where, like we could start to see that. But I think Cade is one of those like, there's certain guys like Jaden Ivey's like one of those guys where he shows up in a gym and he's like, I'm just looking to put up regardless. Like, I am 100% motor at all times, because that's just how they're wired. That's just how they play, right? But then
he's a rookie.
Yeah.
He's a rookie.
Yeah. But then there's certain players where I think, and I think Cade's one of these guys, where when it doesn't count, instinctively he just doesn't care as much. Right. You know what I mean? Like when it doesn't count, he's just bored. For lack of better terms. And I think during the 82 game stretch, I think, I think a lot of the games where he's played his best is when it's been elevated competition or elevated stakes. You know what I mean? So I think once, I think next week, especially the number one pick being in town, opening night, like I think we'll see that energy out of Cade very, very soon.
And that's exciting for us as fans, right? And we know we have a player, and to what you just said about 5 minutes ago, Sean, about it'd be hard to tell the guys in the locker room and the guys on the bench and the coaching staff that this team won't make the play-in, right? Because that's what they're wired to think. They're wired to go out there and they know what they're capable of doing. They know these guys' skill level. And for us fans, that should be exciting. Yeah. So what if we don't make the play-in this year? At least they're playing competitive basketball every night where it's worth watching every game as fans. And it's worth being exciting what the future holds and to watch these guys get better and better and better. And to, again, be competitive against teams that we're going to be watching in May and going to be watching in June with the Eastern Conference Finals, the Western Conference Finals, and eventually the NBA Finals, right? I mean, these are teams that Cade Cunningham, Sadiq Bey are going to have good games against because, like you said, they're wired to play good against. So for us fans, it's going to be an exciting year.
Well, and even then, because here's the reality of how the league works. Here's the reality of how this new lottery system works. The Pistons could still miss the play-in, and they could still get a top 5 pick. That's just how this system works. The
Pelicans.
The New Orleans Pelicans, they were a middling team when they got the number 1 pick with Zion. They weren't tanking.
Derrick Rose, too, with the Bulls that year in 2007, I think.
Yeah, but the odds just just far more now than ever are flattened to discourage teams from tanking. So like the Pistons could be in a situation where they miss the play-in and they still get like the 5th pick, or dare I say the 4th or 3rd or 2nd, or I'm not saying they're gonna get the 1st pick, but like they could be in in play. You never know. So that's all I'm saying is that with the way the lottery works, you can still go out and compete. You can still build foundations towards the future and still be in a position to get a damn good lottery player. That's just how this system works. So, I think ultimately there's more reasons than ever to be optimistic. And I also just think, like Troy said, it's about competing every night. And one thing for certain, I think over, the second game over the first, Pistons looked way more competitive. Even just in those 2 games. So, at the very least, that's progress. But From Half Court is brought to you by Manscaped. When we talk about post players, there is few better players in the restricted area than our friends over at Manscaped. With great products such as the Lawnmower 4.0 with skin-safe technology, the Weed Whacker, their deodorants, lotions, and more, Manscaped is unrivaled when it comes to the men's hygiene game, serving over 8 million balls worldwide. That's a lot of testicles, ladies and gentlemen. So if you're finding yourself in need of Manscaped products, be sure to go to manscaped.com and use code HALFCOURT at checkout, because that can get you 20% off plus free shipping. Our friends at Manscaped sent us these products, and I can tell you that they are absolutely for real. I have been absolutely satisfied and in love with their entire product line, from boxers, t-shirts, the Lawnmower 4.0 to the Weed Whacker ear and nose trimmer. You can really not go wrong. Be sure to go to manscaped.com and use code HALFCOURT at checkout for 20% off plus free shipping. Thank you again to our friends at Manscaped for sponsoring this video. Speaking of progress, the Los Angeles Lakers are making none, and we have to talk about how they made progress. They made progress to signing a dog shit extension, because the Los Angeles Lakers made the decision to give a multi-year extension to general manager and head of basketball operations, Rob Pelinka. Now, Rob Pelinka, of course, the architect of the championship team in 2020, also the architect of some of the worst trades the NBA's seen in the last 20 years. And now, Rob Pelinka will stay on through 2026 with the Los Angeles Lakers. Troy, Jeff, when I brought this up, I was like, we got to talk about this. You both were like, yep. Someone help me here. Like,
when you do the math,
hell?
when you do the math and you realize that 2026 is the year where this contract's going to be up, that that definitely should give you chills inside of you, because you can see again how deep the league is getting, how prospects are coming up. And this Los Angeles Lakers team is making little to no sign of looking at even the future at all. They're still in win now mode with a dog beep roster, right? Because I mean, this yeah.
Yeah,
You know, like this roster is just terribly assembled. I'm sorry, but it is.
No need to apologize, Troy, because I agree with you. This is freaking. It puts the bun in buns and cardigan, man.
You can't compete in this league, putting out the aging guys that you have there. Now, Anthony Davis looked good in preseason, but there is no way that this team is competitive in the Western Conference Finals this year.
Yeah. And I think it speaks to just the dysfunction, because I get it. And I read the article by Dave, who is it? Dave McMenamin. And he talked about the first thing he mentioned too is how Darvin Ham, newly hired head coach, obviously, as we know, they wanted that alignment between him and the front office. So now you get the extension in the front office. You have a coach, for multiple years. I get it. It makes sense. But overall, how can you evaluate what Rob Pelinka has done and accept that? And I get it. What he was given when he first got there was a disaster. He had to get rid of a lot of contracts and free up cap space for free agency. But what he's done since then, like the only thing you can actually say, and I guess is a compliment, is trading for Anthony Davis. But after that, trading for Russell Westbrook, they've constructed this roster. They've actually went backwards, which is hard to believe from where they were, from what they had after Anthony Davis. They won the championship, and now it's this team. They're going to be a middle-of-the-pack team in the West, in my opinion. And I can't even count on Anthony Davis to be healthy for a full season. So I don't know what to expect. I'm curious to see what Darvin Ham does because I really do like him a lot. Obviously, he has ties back to Detroit, so we all love him and appreciate him. But yeah, that organization, Sean, is a dumpster fire. And it starts from the top to the bottom. So shout out to Jeannie Buss. Doing a great job over there.
It's quite an accomplishment to me that Rob Pelinka managed to take a roster that was so poorly constructed this past season, right? And then flip that around, and at the very least, at the beginning of training camp and going into like the regular season next week, I don't think I've seen a worse fielded roster around LeBron James since what? 2005?
Don't say it. Oh,
2004? Like,
yikes.
When LeBron was in his first couple years in Cleveland, like, granted, he has Anthony Davis, but
which is better probably than the whole Cavs roster at the time.
Guys,
he's never available.
Most reliable third option's Kendrick Nunn.
Ooh,
I mean, what are we doing here?
Yeah, I'm curious to see what they do in the front, in the backcourt. Like, do you start Russell and Kendrick Nunn? Like, a holy lack of defense, especially in your backcourt.
Talk about lack of shooting. Holy lack
and
of
the shooting.
Yeah,
you can't defend nobody, and you can't shoot. I mean,
arguably your most important offensive weapon.
And then you could have Pat Bev and Russ on the court together, but you'd be setting offense back 50 years in the process.
Right.
Yeah, like it's. Like it, I'm gonna be honest with y'all. Like watching them play basketball is insulting. Like it's insulting to my intelligence. It's insulting to my time. It's insulting to my dime. It's insulting.
Who else it's insulting to? LeBron James. I mean, for having to deal with this organization right now.
But at the same time, he asked for it, and like he's been in lock and step with the organization, a lot of decisions. Obviously, I know he wanted to be more aggressive in the trade deadline this last year, and that's why he went on the whole hubbub. Like with he was like, I'd think about coming back to Cleveland, but I will say this roster is going to be better by the trade deadline than it is now. Even within the next couple of weeks, they could make a trade in theory at any time. With those two. With those two picks they have in the future. But guys, isn't that the exact problem? Is that the Lakers, in this era where it's more important now than ever to build through the draft and to build long-term sustainability, they're just looking to trade all of their future assets like whenever they can to go get rotational pieces around LeBron? Like what is the best case scenario of trading those 2 picks? Miles Turner and Buddy Hield? That makes you go from maybe making the play-in to definitely making the play-in. But does it do much more than that?
Nope.
In exchange for 2 first-round picks for a franchise, which, by the way, you're letting Rob Pelinka trade picks that are after his contract is up, that you just extended.
Yeah. Doesn't phase him. And you know, it's funny that he's reluctant to trade those picks. Like, I don't understand. It's like, it's the same thing, and it's a completely different scenario. But the thing I always complain about Dan Campbell is, like, if you do something a certain way, then do it. Like, if Rob Pelinka, if you're going to trade away picks, then do it. Don't get cold feet when they're asking for a first round pick to dump Russell Westbrook. You got this organization into this mess, and LeBron and others. But to get Russell Westbrook, and now you're offended that you have to give up assets to get rid of an asset that nobody wants. Like, that's the reality, Rob. So good luck. You're going to have to keep Russell. So if you want to hold on to those picks 4 years from now, I get it, by the way, because to trade your picks for all those years, especially when LeBron might not even be here and you're going to suck. But that's the reality. You got yourself in this predicament. Now get your way out of it. Because LeBron only has 2 years. He signed the extension, but really 2-3 years left in the league. I don't think LeBron's going to be playing till he's 40 plus. So for me, Rob it's a disaster, and it's led by Rob Pelinka. So it's interesting.
Yeah, they don't have a choice, but trade at this point. You know, they have LeBron back on the extension. You know, we haven't even talked about the fact that they traded all these assets to go get Anthony Davis, and it seems like the returns are, you know, at this point are diminishing at best. As far as, you know, like he when healthy, he could still be a great player, and I know we saw flashes of greatness even this preseason, but like Anthony Davis to me is just one of those guys where for some reason he plays really well in games that don't mean anything, and then, like, you know, just for whatever reason outside of a bubble, when you need him, he's not there. You know,
right?
So, yeah, we'll see. By the way, do you think the Lions should be tanking for Victor Wembanyama? I know it's a different sport. It's a whole different thing. But, like,
can he coach?
I mean, yeah, I mean, he might be smarter than Dan Campbell, but that's a whole other.
All I need, man.
Listen, I'm just glad that's not my job. You know what I'm saying?
And if you can play D end, listen, you talk to your people, Sean. Talk to some sources. If you can play D end, I think Dan and Brad will be happy to have that conversation.
You think Victor Wembanyama can be a defensive coordinator?
Imagine those spaghetti legs going down to the end zone.
Dude, his ACLs would be snapped within 45 seconds of putting on football pads. It would be,
he's like a Madden created player, just 7'5" out there running routes. He's the only thing that can save us.
Dude, Victor, that's what he needs to be. Victor Wembanyama needs to be a wide receiver. He'd be like Megatron on steroids. That would be incredible.
Yeah, man. Listen, every organization in Detroit can tank for Victor. Please put him on skates. Send him to the Red Wings.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Hey, the Tigers. Yeah, the Tigers could use him. Like,
can he hit? I mean, come on.
Or goalie on the Red Wings, just sitting on the ice and
5
hands.
His strike zone is massive. Oh my goodness.
No doubt.
Guys, it's 46 minutes into this podcast and we still haven't talked about the Draymond Green tape. That might be the podcast that took the longest to get to that this week. But let's get into it. So last week, you know, around this time, there was a report that began to drop and began to surface of an altercation that took place between Jordan Poole and Draymond Green. And the first thought that I had, and I'm sure y'all had too, when you first read physical altercation was, so did he punch him?
Right.
And we got that answer because TMZ acquired footage, which, by the way, the Warriors are legally pursuing action on, pursuing, every avenue of figuring out whoever was the person to leak this.
Yeah. They
leaked the footage of the altercation between Draymond Green and Jordan Poole. And I can't, like, this, to me, like, there hasn't been a video like circulated like this, as far as like, like the cultural, like everyone, like what, like this felt like when the Ray Rice video got released in a way. You know what I mean? Like obviously, like this isn't like the end of Draymond. This isn't like like he's still gonna be able to like come back and be on the team and like you know what I'm saying. But this, like at the beginning, this felt like this could be relatively minor. I don't see a situation anymore where this ends up being relatively minor, guys. I think my first thoughts after this happened was I think we're seeing the beginning of the end of Draymond Green Golden State.
Wow.
Yeah. And I want to say this too, because I've seen a lot on social media. Well, this happens. This happens in locker rooms. Well, let's bring up a scenario where it has happened. Steve Kerr, Michael Jordan. The difference between that scenario and this scenario is it's freaking Michael Jordan. Like there's this pecking order on every team, right? And if you look at the
it was Michael Jordan to Steve Kerr,
right?
Like it was the greatest player of all time to your backup point guard.
Yeah,
this is your potential franchise star,
right? To a guy who's been the on and off the court leader, a guy who's been the foundation of what they've been trying to do. So it's different with this scenario. And how it happened too. Like you read these reports or you're reading people talk about, well, did Jordan initiate it? Okay. And then you see the video come out. And by the way, I have a theory about the video. It's either two things. One, somebody got a bag, which most likely might be the scenario.
Reports came out saying that the person got paid less than $10,000.
Ooh,
wow. There were some reports that there were people that were telling me, no, I saw 2.6. I saw less than 10,000.
And that might support my second theory, which somebody has a problem with Draymond Green. And I'm telling you right now, this not only makes Draymond look terrible, but everybody now has a soft spot for Jordan Poole. Because if you watch the video, it's clear that Draymond is the one that's confrontational. He gets in Jordan's face. He's leaning on him. And we know Draymond Green. We know he likes to start these things or at least mess around. He's going to get in your face. And for Jordan Poole, he has every right to push him. You're in my face. And it's not like Jordan was yapping in his ear before it happened. Draymond walked over, and who knows what happened, obviously. But it's not like teammates turned and looked at the situation. It's like, all right, it's a normal practice. If you're yapping, you're jawing, that's whatever. But Draymond gets in his face. I have no issue with Jordan pushing him. Get out of my face. And then Draymond throws that cheap shot. Like, and this is what I tweeted out, and people gave me flack for this. If I'm Draymond in this situation, why would you hit him? Push him back. You guys can you've seen this in the NBA. You push me, I push you, guys break up. Okay, it's a little scruff. This was different. You could have hurt Jordan Poole. Like, you could have not only hurt him, fractured an orbital bone, fractured a jaw, whatever it is.
Significant damage.
Cause significant damage. But on top of that, this could potentially ruin their relationship. So now it puts the organization in a situation where, are you going to have to choose between Poole or Draymond? Like, this is the scenario we're dealing with here. So there's no excuse for Draymond Green for what he did. I don't want to hear it. Oh, this happens in locker rooms. Yeah, it does. But does a cheap shot like that happen? Especially to a guy, a 23-year-old, Jordan Poole, who, you know what? Yeah, he might be feeling himself a little bit. He's going to get paid and all that. But for Draymond, the veteran, the leader, to do that, there's a difference between calling, KD a bitch ass or a bitch or whatever you want to call it, and actually laying your hands on somebody. So for Draymond, there is zero to defend him for. It is inexcusable. And if I'm the Warriors, I'm suspending him. And the fact that he waited so long to apologize. I saw Steve Kerr. I saw Steph Curry. I saw Bob Myers all come out and speak for Draymond. I didn't hear Draymond until eventually he talked. That's the issue I have with it, Sean. So honestly, for Draymond, if you're a Warriors fan, I'm curious to see kind of the temperature. Are you already ready for Draymond to get the hell out of there? Because I feel like a lot of Warriors fans watch that video and think to themselves, this is the guy that's supposed to be the on and off the court leader. Like, I get the value he brings, but bro, I know I'm not the only one. We all watched Draymond in the postseason last year. Didn't look good. So you're doing this off of that performance. It's hard for me to argue for him to stay, especially the money he's going to be making.
Troy, it seems to me like Draymond Green, like the way that I've always thought about him, and to me this just cements it. It's that with him, he's one of those players that can be both equally constructive and destructive to your organization. And the fact that, when Draymond is at his best, he is one of the best leaders that we have in this league, both vocally and also, by his actions. He's the definition of a winning player and a winning teammate. But at his worst, he can destroy a locker room single-handedly, it seems. And in addition, we've just seen, multiple patterns of behavior now where, not only can Draymond Green cause emotional damage, but he can cause physical damage. And, when we're looking at what could possibly sideline this Warriors dynasty from being more than it could be, Draymond's the answer, is it not?
Yeah, he is the answer, Sean. And I think one thing that we haven't brought up once is this is our NBA champion team of last year, right?
Yeah, they have a ring ceremony next week.
Both their families are going to be there.
Right. So that's what I'm getting at. Is this is your championship team coming into this season? You're wanting to obviously repeat again. I would assume everyone in that locker room would be saying that. And you go out and do something like this. Yeah, Sean, I think you put it well. The beginning of the end. I don't know what team would be interested in him. I mean, we know that what he can bring to a basketball court, but this is going to change his career. I think this is going to put a black eye on his career too. I really think that we're going to be talking about this 5-10 years down the road. Maybe not every day or, a huge part of the breakup of the Warriors, but this very well could be a turning point in their organization.
Well, I mean, it's to me, it's like people bring up, I think before, people would bring up the nut kick on LeBron in the finals. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think now it's going to be the punch.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Something like that. Something like that is what I'm getting at as well. But yeah, I think what he means on the defensive end, what he can do on the offensive end too. There's Draymond Green is an impactful player on any contending team right now, has the potential to be, and especially the NBA championship Golden State Warriors. So moving forward, they're going to have a tough decision to make because I do think it's one or the other, because that was a hard hit. That wasn't just hey, you pissed me off in practice hit. That was a seriously.
He put his heart, his soul, his body, his everything.
There was a cheap
There
shot.
was emotion in that hit is what I'm trying to say. And I think, you're not going to trade away Poole. He's too young. He has too much potential. He's the guy you're probably going to have to cut ties with, I think. So I would love to see what Jordan Poole's going to be doing this first couple of weeks in the NBA, starting the season out. I wonder what we're going to be hearing from him moving forward. I think, man, going last, Chef, Sean, you guys got both good takes on this. There isn't much more for me to add.
And you saw his first game after that incident, by the way.
Right.
Unbelievable. He looked unbelievable. So I think he just cemented the statement of hey, if it's me or you, I think the writing's on the wall already.
Right.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, of course. And I think, Draymond even said in his press conference that there were things that, were hurting him that day that was brought into it. I know there's looming contract negotiations and situations going on with both players. One thing I think a lot of people were touching on and speculating that, there were fake reports that, Jordan Poole was talking about his contract and his behavior's been different this camp. And Steve Kerr even made the point to be that couldn't be further from the truth. He's been fantastic.
Steph Curry too.
Locked in. Yeah, exactly. So I think the fact that a lot of these things, they talk about how things like this happen in teams, but the fact that this one's made public is different because Jeff, you brought up earlier how you had those theories of this to me seems whoever leaked this video. I think there's more than monetary, motivations behind that. And, I think this ultimately could be one of those moments where, we look at that Kevin Durant, Draymond Green report that came out, that was a moment that changed the Warriors forever. I think this is a moment that could be changing the Warriors forever as well. So
and Draymond's in both of them.
Yep, 100%. And, obviously one of those changes, they still got a title. I mean, who knows if, you still have guys like Jonathan Kuminga, Moses Moody, James Wiseman. The thing that makes the Warriors so tantalizing is that obviously the old guard can't stay forever, and Draymond might be the first of that old guard to go, but they might have some really damn good pieces in the wings waiting to go.
Yeah.
And so I just, they were already one of the most interesting teams to keep an eye on this season because they were looked at as repeat favorites, right? they just became that much more interesting to watch.
Correct.
Yeah,
So-
and for Pistons fans watching, if you made it this far, please answer the question. Comment down below. Would you trade for Draymond Green? Because I know people have been talking about that as well. I'm going to answer right now. Hell no. So that's my official answer. And that's not because of this incident, by the way. Me and Sean, we've made videos about Draymond Green. I've never been on board considering what he's going to be making. I get, it would help the young guys. I get all of that. But trust me.
Yeah, you don't want it.
You don't want it.
Yeah, to me, I think this is a, in my opinion, and like looking at, this whole situation, like I think Draymond, like if he's gonna go anywhere, to me it's the Lakers. Like I think, like the one relationship we've been seeing more and more of is him and LeBron. All throughout summer, hanging out at weddings, hanging out together. You got to think those guys have talked about playing together at some point, right? And so, especially with Draymond wanting his money, I think that's a situation where, the Lakers in theory could, move some money, or they're going to have some money after this season to spend, once that Russell Westbrook contract is off their godforsaken books. But,
and Sean, another thing too, hey, more guys that can shoot. Lakers love those guys.
They do, but but in all seriousness, though, I do think Draymond is going to be solid. Like, there's going to be a market for Draymond Green.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Like,
Listen, for everything I talk about Draymond, there is value, but listen, the guy hasn't aged the best. I'll say it that way, but there's still value.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the one thing I will say, if he can't get a freaking offensive game of any resemblance this year, that might make the decision for the Warriors. So, yeah. But I will say, I just going into next week, I'm just so excited for this season. I'm going to have League Pass locked up, ready to go. There's a lot of teams I'm really looking forward to watch. And, I just think there's a lot of storylines in particular. It just touches the fact that it's like we have so much to talk about that, like, oh yeah, the Draymond Green situation. Duh. Like, you know what I mean? Like that
remember last year was Simmons watch. Where's Simmons going to go? This might be Draymond Green watch this year. So
yeah, for sure. But with that, folks, it is now time, of course, for a segment and a time of the show that we all love, and that, of course, is From Mount Rushmore. Troy, my friend, you said you had something in your sleeve that you were excited to get started this week. What is that, my
super
friend?
excited to get started this week. I could see us doing this for the next month or two. I really could. I think that this is going to be a great segment where I think the three of us could very well disagree on each and every one. I think the comment section could blow up. So this is going to be even more fun. So what this segment is going to be is I'm going to say an NBA player. This could be a present player, a past player. Well, it can't be a future player, but it can be a present player, a past player, all different eras. And we have to answer two questions. Okay. Should this player be a Hall of Famer? And then will this player be a Hall of Famer? Because there's plenty of players that we think should be but won't be, and there is plenty of players that shouldn't be but will be. So this is our opportunity to make cases and to not make cases for players of our lifetime, players maybe that even played in the 80s or 90s that are on that level too that still haven't been inducted yet. So this is going to be a lot of fun. And I'm going to start off today with a guy who's actually still in the league. We saw him with a short stint with the Detroit Pistons. That is Derrick Rose. I think you can make a great argument for both sides of the table there. At the end of the day, I'm going to go should. I think his 2011 NBA MVP season at 22 years old was just too good of a year, leading that Bulls team to the Eastern Conference Finals. But not just that. I'm not saying he should be a Hall of Famer for one season. But looking at, he had a little bit of a tough time after he left Chicago to then go to Cleveland and New York, then Cleveland. But then his 50-piece against the Timberwolves, what he's meant to basketball, his big contract with Adidas too, and then even in the international level, they all know Derrick Rose. They all love Derrick Rose. I just feel like the stats that he put up in his prime, I feel like the stats that he's, you think about stars in his era, he's still in the league, but in that early 2000 teens, a lot of those guys aren't in the league anymore, but he still is. Even in the depth of this league right now, he's still putting up numbers. I would love to hear your guys' take, but in my opinion, he should be a Hall of Famer, Derrick Rose.
Yeah. I love your enthusiasm. I love Derrick Rose so much. And that's why it kills me to say I don't think Derrick Rose had a long enough of a runway in order to be a Hall of Famer. Specifically, at his apex and like when he was truly, producing at his best point, right? I mean, like when you look at the career of Derrick Rose and you look at it when you look at his career trajectory, where he's at now, he really had that special, like really like that those first 4 years of his career. He was looking like he was on an all-time, trajectory. And then year 4 he tore his ACL, And it's not like from there, it's not like he didn't have seasons, where, he was in the lineup and he was still playing pretty good basketball, but like just when I think of like, like the most devastating of injuries because, he just wasn't the same after that, right? And I think, the difficult thing is Derrick has, D Rose has had seasons after that, like I said, where he still played good basketball, right? But like the tough thing too is like, especially over these past, Derrick Rose hasn't played in more than 50 games in an NBA season since 2017. And it's like that just sucks. But like, especially like as his career keeps going on, the unfortunate reality is that's just going to bring the overall quality of the career down a little bit. And so I just think, when looking at, I think he should, I'm with you when you look at what he meant to the game of basketball. There are so many like there's no John Morant, there's no Derrick Rose, right? Like I think we all agree on that, right?
Correct.
But like at the same time, like I think he's like a Hall of Fame talent. I just don't know if he'll be a Hall of Fame player.
Okay, so you mentioned something interesting. You said you're on board with me that he should. So should he? But then will he? Because I know I'm on the same page with you that he won't be.
Yeah, so should be in the sense of like what he like if you were to put guys in the Hall of Fame for where they were at their prime, absolutely he should be a Hall of Famer. You know, I just don't think he has the resume to be a Hall of Famer.
Correct.
So I
and
don't think he will.
He will not be. I think he should be, but he will not be. Jeff, what do you think?
I'm gonna. Well, can I give my person I'm gonna nominate? Because I'm with you. I think. Listen, Derrick, I'm kind of split on Derrick Rose. I love him as a player, but I think the longevity is probably where I'd agree with Shaw. But for me, I'm gonna go more of a local standpoint, but somebody that this is biased. I'm gonna admit it. It's Chauncey Billups. And this is somebody who not only won an NBA championship, but you talk about the accolades, and I think he's good enough to be in the Hall of Fame. Now, will he make it? Probably not. But if you read I'll just read his accolades for you. Not only is he an NBA champion, Finals MVP, 5-time All-Star, all NBA second team, 2-time All-NBA third team, and we will keep going on. He made defensive teams as well. And I think a guy who everywhere he went, he impacted winning. And I think that's the biggest thing I look for. A guy who elevated his play in the postseason as well. That's important to me. So for me, I'm going to go from a local standpoint. This is just one of my favorite players of all time. I'm going to go Chauncey. Yes, I'm completely biased, and he most likely will not, but I think he has the accolades to do so, and he has the longevity. I mean, he had a long career, and he's been consistent. So for me, I'm going to go Chauncey Billups.
I'm going to go Chauncey too. I'm going to go should be, but I'm actually going to go will be. In the next 10 years? No.
Man.
In the next 20 years? No. But 30 to 40? Guys, you laugh, but I'm serious. We see this all the time in NFL, NBA. You get a Hall of Fame class. There's guys from back in the day that get popped up. He will be. He will be.
He's like 80 years old. They're like, Chauncey. He's like, what? Hall of Fame.
It's gonna happen, guys. It's gonna happen.
I just didn't expect, but guys, in the next 30 to 40 years, he's bound to get in.
No, I agree, Troy. I mean, listen, I'm never going to say he won't make it, but most likely he won't. But I think he should. From a biased standpoint, yes, completely biased.
I mean, when you give yourself a 30-year window, I mean,
I'm giving all of the guys.
They'll eventually get in.
I'm giving all the guys 30-year windows.
If 30 years, oh yeah, Victor whatever, want to bang your mama? He'll be in there. He'll be in that conversation.
Yeah, he might be in there right now. I mean, oh my god.
Sean, do you got a name for us?
Oh yeah, man. I mean, when I think of like should he or will he? I mean, like the epitome, like the number one name, like the first name that comes to my head, Vince Carter. I mean, just like when you look at the longevity of his career, when you look at all the different teams he's played on, all the all-star appearances, his impact not only, to, like just NBA basketball, but USA basketball. I mean, this is a guy that in the 2000s was one of like the perennial premier players, right? And it's like when you're asking like, should he? I think Vince Carter has one of the better basketball resumes in the history of this earth, right?
Mhm.
So like looking at should he? I feel like Vince Carter probably should. But like at the same time, when you look at what Vince Carter hasn't accomplished, when you look at like some of the things that like he hasn't done, like now look, like Pro Basketball Reference has Vince Carter at a Hall of Fame probability of 94.5%.
He should be.
And,
And he will.
and ultimately, like when push comes to shove, I think Vince Carter will make the Hall of Fame, right? But to me, he's one of those stars when you're going down like the list of NBA greats and you're like, oh, that guy's a Hall of Famer. Oh, that guy's a Hall of Famer. To me, Vince Carter is the best name that you first go, I don't know if he is. Because, guys, like, as much as I love Vince, he didn't, like, what did he win?
Right.
Like he, and in addition, like, there were just so many years where, especially like his last 5 seasons, like, the 3
Just a
years in
rotational
Memphis,
player.
yeah, the year in Sacramento, the 2 years, like, I mean, this guy played, he was playing 14 minutes a game at 43, like he was out there just because he loved the game, which is great, but like he wasn't there for his play at the end,
Mhm.
but
Sure.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm
I
interested
still
in what
think
your
he
guys'
will
thoughts
be
are.
at the end of the day. The trajectory of his career, what he means to the game of basketball, what he's brought to each and every team, that long list of teams that he's been on, he will be, and
Yeah.
yes, he should be. So to me, that's definitely a should and will.
Yeah, I think so too. But would you guys agree that that's probably
Yeah.
the best name that you start to go,
Yeah.
like even, and that's even for like a player that I love. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Well, Troy, that's a good segment, man. I'm
Yeah.
actually really excited to keep doing that one.
We'll
that was
be
fun.
coming back every week for at least maybe 4, 5, 6 weeks doing this. So
Yeah, dude, that's gonna be fun. Like we should have like specific themes and like eras that we do,
sure,
and like
let's do
yeah.
it. There's plenty, like I said, there's plenty of guys in the 80s and 90s who you can make a case for that still aren't today. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, man. Well,
Bernard
dude,
King.
I'm excited. That's gonna be a fun segment, but it's
yeah,
gonna be a
we're
fun.
coming up on the 30-year anniversary. So they're bound to come soon, right?
Heck yeah, man. Heck yeah. Well, also, dude, we're like, not only are like we on the bound for like, like just all this, like, there's a lot of interesting stuff to come, but guys, basketball is next week. The next time we have this podcast, there will be actual basketball to discuss. I mean,
go.
technically we'll still be recording like the night before, like actual game, but you know what I mean.
You get the
Like,
picture. Yeah, you get it.
yeah, you get the picture. But with that, with getting the picture, there's no better place that's going to paint a better picture of the NBA and the world of the Pistons better than From Half Court. And that's the place you're going to want to be, because this is the premier NBA and Pistons podcast that you got to have on your feed. So if you like that, be sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, also share on all the podcast services that your heart desires, whether you're an iTunes user, whether you're a Spotify user, whether you're a nerd. We don't care. We love you. Whatever app your heart desires, we're there. But also be sure you're following my people on Twitter. My guy Troy at TroySergey44. My guy Jeff at Jeff Freddy. And if you're feeling oh so generous and oh so, charitable, you can follow myself down here at Sean Halfcourt as well. But also be sure you check him out, my boy Jeff, Monday through Friday on the Morning Woodward Show, as he is there to kill it and has to essentially give a funeral speech for the Lions each and every day. But
that's why we have you on to talk Pistons, Sean.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. I'm like the game at the funeral that you play to make the kids less bummed. That's what we bring it in talking.
What an analogy.
Oh, that's going to be a quote that's going to live on.
Yeah.
But oh my gosh. But folks, we want to thank you all so much for tuning in. We want to thank you all for being the fourth chair on this podcast, joining in the conversation in the comments. And we will catch you guys next time from Half Court. Be sure you subscribe.